All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the May 4th, 2023, 9 a.m. Planning Board meeting. Seeing we have a quorum, we'll call the meeting to order. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you. Starting our meeting, does any member of the Planning Board have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest with regard to any item on the agenda? If so, please state so at this time. Sybil?
No.
I do not.
I do not.
I do not. I do not as well.
Okay. Seeing that no one does, we have a draft agenda before us. Does anybody wish to amend the draft agenda before us? And if not, can I have a motion to approve it?
Motion is to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. The draft agenda is now approved. Number 3 on our agenda today is public comments. And seeing that we do not have any visitors today, other than the applicant before us, we will move on to consideration of approval of 2 of our previous Planning Board minutes. The first one is April 6th of 2023. Does anybody have any comments or changes regarding that?
Yeah, in the April 6th meeting, my memory is that we briefly considered having a discussion about conditional zoning and decided, after not taking up the subject at that meeting, that we would allocate some time on our May 19th UDO meeting to kind of do a gut check, now that we have some experience in how conditional rezoning has worked in this initial application. I don't see that in the minutes, and I would be disappointed if we didn't take the opportunity to discuss conditional rezoning at that May 19th UDO meeting.
I agree. I think it was the 18th.
18th, whatever
meeting I had thought and made my notes. And yes, Richard, I do agree that we said that once we got the definitions from the Council of Government, which would be our last major item in the UDO revision process, that we would dedicate some time for the discussion of conditional zoning. And we have an item at the end of today's meeting, our last item, where we're going to schedule 2 special meetings for
Yes.
that conditional zoning.
And I'm going to put the board on alert that those dates do not work for me. I
Okay.
specifically scheduled, looking forward
Well,
to this
let's
June
wait
2nd
until we
meeting,
get
but
to
we'll
that
discuss that later on.
Your point about you wish to amend the
Just to
April 6th.
acknowledge that we did
Well-
agree to have a follow-up conversation about UDO.
There's a sentence on there where it says in the beginning, remember Geisinger
wasn't
suggested
here, so I don't
conditional
know.
zoning be added to new business item 5, but there's no date there. So you suggesting that we should be added to new business on the May 18th meeting? Is
Yeah,
that what
I
you-
thought that's what we discussed, because I pushed to have it on,
So I don't remember if we cited
Katie,
date.
Katie has something to ask. And
On that day, you wanted to add it to that meeting?
Correct.
So it's on here that it was requested that meeting and the motion was denied.
correct.
If you want to amend to those minutes, I can change it to say that members' discussion ensued and they chose a date, May 19th, I believe you said. So I can add that. You
That'd be
just need
great.
to
18th,
accept
18th.
these as amended,
All right.
how you want it worded, and I'll fix that.
how does the rest of the planning board feel about that? Any objections to that?
No.
I have none.
I have none.
Nope.
Okay.
I wasn't here.
Just
Thanks.
just tell me how you want it to
Um,
read, and I'll get that.
Just say the motion failed, and after that, because that's underlined here, can you say something like continued discussion arrived at the conclusion that at the May 18th board meeting, we would continue the discussion on the format of conditional zoning.
Beautiful. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, I'd like
Wait.
to, oh, do you have something else?
Yes, there's a technical correction to be made.
All right, let's
It
do that.
concerns today's item, actually. On page, I'll make sure I get my page right here. On page 3 in a minute, or packet page 4,
Mhm.
in the paragraph that starts with Valerie or Megan, I don't know which one we got today.
Valerie.
We have Valerie. Where it says UDO
So third sentence, UDO states the sign allowance is 2 feet per 1 linear feet.
It should be square feet.
Well,
I mean, it
the
should-
UDO currently states 1 square foot per
Or 2 linear feet.
2 linear feet.
Okay.
So you should be able to get
See
that.
that?
So that's not stating the correct. That doesn't state correct what the UDO says. So you can pull that from the UDO if you want.
And he's right. It should read, UDO states that
States-
the sign allowance is
one
square foot per 2 linear foot.
feet of frontage. Yeah.
Yes.
But if you want the exact text, you just go to the UDO and get it,
Okay. I agree that that should be
Yeah.
clarified.
because that's basically opposite of what the code is, the way it's written now, right? Because it's saying,
Yes.
yeah,
You're
So-
right. You're right.
even though we're discussing to change that today, it's not stated correctly what it was.
Katie, can we approve the minutes as amended, or do we need to? Okay.
You can approve them as amended.
I'd like to
I'll get these fixed
Okay.
and then you'll sign them as amended.
Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion that we approve the April 6th minutes as amended.
I
With one
second.
suggestion. Sybil seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved as amended. The next item is our April 20th, 2023 meeting, where the topic was our UDO. Does anybody have any suggested changes to it? I have one.
Why don't you go first?
Well, and I apologize, I didn't pick it up the first time I read these. My bad here. But on packet page 6, it's the second line from the bottom, the word "they." I think it's misleading, and Wes, correct me if I'm wrong. I'll read this. It says, Wes McLeod, Cape Fear COG, stated that for any homeowner wishing to be part of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA flood insurance program, it says "they," which would mean that it would be the homeowner. It really is that the town or the municipality must participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to have access to a FEMA-backed policy, the town must be a
Okay, so-
participant in
But you
it.
could change they to
So
the
that
town.
word "they" should be the town. Richard,
Yeah, in Article 6,
what
Uh,
page are you on?
I'm on packet page 7.
Okay.
Member Dysinger stated he would like the town to have wireless coverage during outages for emergency services. I think the point I was trying to make was more that universal coverage should be part of the consideration set in the UDO. This sounds kind of casual. Well, great, Dysinger wants 100% coverage, good for him. But the point of what I tried to communicate there was that universal coverage should be included in the UDO as part of the consideration set.
Part of the consideration.
Yeah. So when we have a list of things, when we're looking at a tower or co-location, a carrier may come to us and say, I need this in order to complete coverage over Sugar Sands.
And that would be one of the considerations we would use as the test for approval or denial.
You got it. Okay?
I don't object to that, but
I'm not sure how to write it, but yeah.
I think what was written there got the point across, but already. But,
Yeah.
It's your words, not mine.
All right,
It's fine.
thanks.
I'll change it.
All right,
You can,
very good.
Approve these as amended.
All right, I'd like to entertain a motion that we approve the April 20th, 2023 Planning Board minutes as amended with the 2 items on it that we discussed.
I so move.
Sybil
second.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Minutes approved as amended. All right, moving on to our old business. I'm sorry, public comments. Nope, we already did that.
Yeah, we did
Excuse
it.
me.
Old business 5.
These are new glasses, so you have to kind of look up and down. Old business, Article 11 signs, text amendment considerations. Seeing that Chad Starodumsky, our planning director, is not in today, Wes McLeod from the Council of Governments is sitting in his seat to be able to coach us and guide us. May I ask Valerie, the applicant, to approach the podium and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Valerie O'Kane, O-K-A-N-E. I'm with Anchor Sign, we're a sign contractor for Family Dollar, Dollar Tree. In the last hearing, we had some notes and we took every single one into consideration, and it's all in the new text amendment that we are proposing. The only difference from what's existing in the code is now saying for those buildings with a setback over 250 feet, for buildings measuring over 25,000 lease gross footage, by the way, signs shall be limited to 2 square feet of signage per 1 linear foot of tenant lease frontage with a combined maximum of 200 square feet. So basically if commercial buildings are greater than 25,000 lease gross square footage, but they're under 250 feet, nothing changes from the existing code. So this only allows the larger spaces that are further off of the road to have slightly larger signs to be visible.
Okay. For the record, and I think it's details are important, particularly when it comes to meetings like this and YouTube. Your resubmittal of your anchor sign letter still has the original date of March 27th on it, and you've made some revisions in that.
It's supposed to automatically update.
And it didn't. So there will be a different date on it, and I'm not going to get into the weeds on that. It doesn't matter. I just want the record to show that this is a resubmittal letter from your March 27th letter.
Yes, sir. Sorry about that.
Because counting, we have to act within a certain amount of time of an application being made. So
Okay, understood.
so this is really a regurgitation of new information for us to digest.
I have a couple questions for the applicant.
Please.
Simple questions. So I take it, just to confirm some things, packet page 22, which is your site overview plan. So you are certainly saying the front of those buildings are more than 250 feet from the road.
Yes, we're
Or
300.
from your property line.
It's 300 feet setback according
Okay.
to the civil engineer.
And what we call package page 24, I don't believe we have a drawing number here. These are the signs that you're proposing under the new text.
I don't have the exact packet that you're.
It's the one you've labeled variance
Okay.
option.
Right.
Yes. Then
So
yes,
you're
those are what we are
proposing-
proposing.
That the building is 151 feet of frontage.
Yes, I measured it myself last time I was here.
I checked it. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you're asking for is the sign to be 191.119 square feet.
Total. Yes.
Right. So this is your proposal. Okay.
Yes, which is 100 square feet more than
So
what
I
we
guess
were approved.
might get in
Yes.
trouble for this, a loaded question. This is what you want the text to get you to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And do these measurements,
Richard, let Ron finish.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's-
We
that's
thought you
it.
were.
So this is what, so however the text goes, your goal is to have this be acceptable. That anything up to 200 square feet on that building is acceptable.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
and what you've done here is the maximum in terms of what you've requested? In terms of relation of the size of the sign to the linear footage of the frontage?
Yes.
You've taken all of it. In other words,
Yes, we actually went smaller. We were originally over 200, but one of Mr. Labruno's comments from last time was he wanted to see it at a maximum of 200
okay.
square feet. So we made our sign smaller to stay within the maximum of 200 square feet. So it's just duplication of the existing maximum.
I guess what I, and I think we all share this, when I look at this frontage, I go, this looks fine. What I'm more concerned about is, have we now created a text amendment that will allow for larger signage than what we represent here in terms of the percentage of frontage to the building?
No, because there's still a maximum.
Okay, but this is the maximum.
No, just under.
Well, it's
Just
slightly
under.
Well, but
191 out of 200.
if you're
198.
that's why we have like the maximum of, yes, it's 2 to 1. So ultimately, if we didn't have the maximum of 200 square feet, we could go up to 300, but we're cutting it at 200.
Okay, and that's in the text amendment.
it's
Yes.
part of text.
All right, cool.
Any other questions? Because I have some for Valerie. Go ahead.
No,
Sybil, do you have anything?
I don't. I think it's well done.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of detail here. One thing that I don't want to use the word caution you, but when you submit your sign or when you look at your sign, talk with Chad Starodomsky, because if I count the area between, we have Family Dollar, 2 words. If I count the space in between those family and dollar, and the same thing for dollar and tree, I'm not counting the space between Family Dollar and Dollar Tree. I come in slightly above 200 square feet. I'm just cautioning you to look at the detail.
Yes. So we're showing a footprint, which is each word is boxed individually, and that was through with Chad. We worked with him.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because Chad will be the guru on approving that, because you obviously have to count the spaces in between each letter.
Yes.
But if he is agreeable that family and dollar are 2 separate, because be cautious. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. I have one other question if you're finished, Pete.
Go ahead, Richard.
It seemed to me that in the monument sign, when I first read the revision, it almost sounded like there could be 2 monument signs. You're not suggesting that you want to erect or create an amendment that would allow for the erection of 2 monument signs, one for 25,000 footers and one for everybody else?
No, sir. It's the original text didn't say double-sided,
Okay.
and there are some municipalities that have each side individually will count as a separate sign.
Oh, I
So
don't.
in our
Okay.
amendment was
We don't.
just
We
making it clearer that it's a double-sided
Okay, but the amendment as is written doesn't allow.
for a secondary sign. No,
Okay,
sir.
Great. If everybody else is finished, I have a statement or a conversation with Valerie. Your package, as it's put together, or when a package is put together, and when a text amendment is made by us to go to town council to officially change the UDO, the Unified Development Ordinance, we have to have our antenna up to try to anticipate any and all subsequent activities that could be impacted by that. And the way you presented your text amendment, to me, creates avenues of uncertainty that are really well outside of the scope of what you're looking for. I think Ron just really capped what you're looking for is a 200 or less square foot sign, as opposed to a 100 square foot sign, which you would have been restricted to.
Yes, that's what we were previously
Okay.
approved for.
So the 200 square foot is really your focus, not on monument signs or not on anything else that is within our UDO. And this isn't a trick question. It's
Well, yeah, so allowing us to have up to 200 square foot is ultimately our goal. Yes,
okay.
sir.
Well, good. The way it's presented, you get into detail that I am extremely uncomfortable with. You get into section 11.9, which deals with non-residential zoning district signs, which I agree limits things to 100 square foot. But what you're really looking for is I believe, is your particular structure is over 25,000 square feet. So you want a caveat within our UDO that allows you to vary from what everybody else that has a smaller commercial building would be required to do.
It's not necessarily only a smaller commercial building, but it's also with the consideration for the setback, because that was something that was
You're exactly right, and I'm going to get to there.
Okay.
You have 2 things that are different in your case: over 25,000 square feet and more than 250 foot setback. Because I think you read the pulse of the planning board that we don't like large signs,
Yeah.
but we realize that if you are set back more than the required, let's say 50 foot that most people would be, that it can be difficult for you to do business because people won't know you're there. And people driving down the street, what does that sign say? It's too small. I can't read it at 250 linear feet away.
Yeah.
And we, I think, all agree that we want to promote business. We want you to succeed, the businesses to succeed, and we want it to be appropriately advertised that doesn't create distractions to our local citizens. So I think getting into section 11.9 serves no purpose, because everybody else that comes in that has a building under 25,000 square feet and is less than 250-foot setback is going to follow the rules as they are today.
Okay.
And I don't want to muddy the water that even gets them thinking that they can make a larger sign.
I see. Okay.
Unless they can fit the two stipulations, which I think should be
Together.
added to 11.92, which deals in a new item F as in Frank, because now we go A through E, which says, and I'm going to read this to you. I'll read it slowly and see if it achieves what you really want. And if this gets approved, Katie, I'll hand this to you. I say the only change that I would support under this application is to add 11.9.2 F, non-residential structures in the MB1 zoning district, which is where you are, MB1, involving a single store measuring greater than 25,000 square foot of gross footprint area. And the describer underneath that would be wall sign, comma, including glassed area for buildings with a front setback from roadway greater than 250 linear feet, and in parentheses or in brackets, same side setback condition for corner lots, sidewall sign. Because for the edification of people listening and the rest of the planning board, if you have a corner store on two roads, you can put a wall sign on each facing. So I'm saying if your side lot is 250 foot as well, you can put a bigger sign. If not, you can put a 100 square foot sign on.
Okay.
Shall be limited to 1.5 square foot of wall sign face area per 1 linear foot of store frontage on which the sign is attached, up to a maximum wall sign area of 200 square feet. All other conditions of section 11.9.2 A through E shall apply. Now, what I'm saying is your building is 151 foot frontage. So if you multiply that by 1.5 square feet, it gets you to your 200 square foot sign maximum.
Okay.
And what this does is it doesn't, because every time we make a change, it's like, my God, what else are we changing? Or what are the ramifications of that? I'm trying to keep it simple. Just add an item F that equates to 25,000, greater than 25,000 square feet and a 250 foot setback.
And you're basically combining the two criteria into one instead of the way the original text amendment was proposed. It split the two criteria, the 25,000 and then the 250. I think what Pete's proposing, put them together into, it creates one exception only. You have to have both conditions.
Well,
Right.
so that's what.
And in
our
your case, you
text-
have both conditions, so it meets your need.
Right.
Yeah.
But for someone else that may build a 25,000 foot store,
So
but isn't 250 feet,
They're back to the old.
they're
rules.
back to the old
which is
rules.
what our text amendment said too.
Yes, it did.
So-
You went around the barn 3 times saying it, and to me, it confused.
we
It
do.
created potential for later confusion
Okay.
with other applicants, if you will.
Yeah.
So
I wasn't able to write it out verbatim, but I'll have the minutes, right? So I can
yeah,
use
it-
that.
and
Okay.
and I'll give
Okay.
you. I'm going to give this to Katie, and she's going to make that into the record. What
Okay.
we're doing here is we are going to now vote on a text amendment, which then goes before our town council, and they get an opportunity to say yes or no, or get an opportunity to. They don't question the applicant, I don't think, at that phase, do they?
They may, and just so you know, effectively the intent of what you're after is being incorporated. It's just coming through it in a bit of a different terminology and better for the ordinance. So, assuming that this were to pass town council, you would still be able to put the sign that you're proposing to put up to 200 square feet.
Okay.
All right. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
I think so.
You get to your end, but the language is somewhat different.
Yes.
That's well, yes. Okay,
Yeah, because
thank you.
the two, we're combining the two.
We'll make sure you have this before you leave here today, so you can look at
Write
it.
it verbatim.
And we're not,
Yeah.
we're asking your, not approval, but your support, I guess, is really what it would amount to.
Yeah.
Wes, I need some coaching here.
Sure.
We're going to make a
One
motion
question.
to approve,
One question.
okay?
If you notice what Chad put together, there's also this revision to the top. So we're leaving that as is.
Yes, we're leaving that
Okay.
as is. The only more thing we're adding is the F on 11.9.
Right, where he changed to 10% of the wall area.
They were suggesting that.
So that
Well-
doesn't change, right?
The
Or that change-
one of the comments I think last time was a concern about it specifically saying for that tenant space and not for people to take the entire building into consideration. So that's what we had tried to work into our verbiage.
And I did
To-
too. I say a single
That's-
store.
So I
That's
think
right.
that's where the 10% came
But-
from, is also providing another avenue for a maximum to prevent larger signs than what you would want for the facade
Okay,
that's
and
on.
we can maybe consider that in our UDO rewrite, but I think
Yeah.
it contaminates this application
Specific
right
one.
now.
Okay.
So I've said I'm not going to consider that.
Yeah, that the intro section under 11.9.2 will remain unchanged. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And only 11.9.2F.
Will be
Well,
added.
Okay. And just for the board and the chair, I mean, I had a similar idea about the language, essentially taking the sizing portion that is in the first two sentences and just adding an F and creating, and so 11.92 would start: all wall and window signage shall be compliant with the following. And then you would have a separate F specific for
Yes.
size, similar to sort of what you're doing. But let's move forward with this. And
Okay.
if we can work with town council if we need to further tweak the
Okay.
language.
All right.
But yes.
Coaching, I don't want
Mhm.
to say off the record because we're obviously on
Yeah,
the record.
sure.
I want to have a discussion with the planning board on refunding the applicant's $300 fee. It is my feeling that the applicant, in very good faith, came up with wording that I am not prepared to accept. And because it is my wording or our wording that we're going to incorporate in, and I think it's to the advantage of future businesses. So it isn't just this applicant that's benefiting from this process or this text amendment. It is everyone from here on in, that I feel it fair and appropriate to refund their $300 application fee.
And so I'll just talk through this, and the way that, and Lisa's here as well, but the way that I typically view this is the planning board is going to move forward language that achieves the intent of the applicant's request, and therefore it is in line. And I think that they should be responsible for essentially the fee for the hearing notification will go to council, and the fee for staff time, etc. If, for example, let's just take a analogy here. An applicant came in with an amendment, and let's just talk about ball fields, and the amendment was related to ball field A, and then all of a sudden the amendment turns into something that's going on ball field B through D that's wholly unrelated, has no impact, doesn't meet the intent, then that is a more appropriate mechanism for refunding the applicant's fee. But we're really achieving the goal and the intent of their amendment in the first place here. And so for that reason, I wouldn't think that it's necessarily appropriate. I mean, you've assisted them in helping them achieve their goal. So I think
Okay, you
That's
make
fair.
sense. I just felt that because
Okay.
the wording, their whole wording was changed and turned on its head. That I thought it would be fair and reasonable. But what does the rest of the planning board feel?
I think it's close, but I'm comfortable with retaining the fee. I mean,
This is kind of a straw vote right now. It's
Yeah.
not we're not.
I mean, we do have a sensitivity that is appropriate, that when us, because I mentioned it, well, why don't we do this through, the Board of Adjustment? These are rules we're going to have to live with. It's not just going to apply to this applicant. So in that sense, are they helping us create law that's really our job, or are we doing something on their behalf from which they will benefit? It's a close call on
Well,
this
you
one.
make a good point, Richard, but what I look at it is if they went to the Board of Adjustment, it would just be for that site-specific
Yes.
case, and other people couldn't do it, and the town could not benefit from being able to support commercial enterprises.
And that's a
I
great
think
point.
we're benefiting by
Absolutely.
this, so Ron, what would your feelings be on it?
Yeah. I mean, there is obviously the advertising expenses that it's going to cover, basically, right?
Yep.
And no one asked about this before, so clearly it's sort of site dependent. I mean, I guess I could be had either way, but I think at this point they're kind of getting what they wanted. It covers the advertising expenses. I
Okay.
don't think it's going to break the project. Maybe
So you
it
agree
is.
with Wes?
I kind of agree with Wes. It's specific enough to what they requested. We're just changing the wording.
Okay.
But to my first question to her in the beginning, they don't really care how we get there. They were trying to help us get there. But what they wanted was, because their store is big enough and it's far enough back from the road, a larger sign. And that's what they're getting. So I think it's, for them, money well spent. They cover some expenses and we get to the ends that we're all happy with.
Jerry, what do you think?
I kind of have to agree with Wes.
Yeah, I'm
Wes,
persuaded by Ron.
It's a pass-through, if I'm not
First time for
mistaken, it's a
everything.
pass-through expense back to the client.
Oh, Ron, don't say this.
Hold on.
Is it a pass-through expense back to the client? Is it not the $300?
I don't think that's an
And
appropriate
the
question.
hours
That's
that
not an
you're
appropriate
driving.
question.
Yeah.
But that's
All right.
Sybil.
I'm
It's okay.
fine with Wes.
Okay. All right, I'm not going to pursue that then. I'd like to entertain a motion that we approve the text amendment wording that I am going to provide to Katie now and to the applicant, which is only changing 11.9.2F
The addition only of 11.92F, right?
Addition.
Because
with
it
the
doesn't
addition of 11.92F without changing anything else in the UDO. Do I need to read it again?
No, sir.
Okay, I've already read it verbatim.
And in a motion, and also in the motion, ask for the motion to include the adoption of the consistency statement as well.
Okay, yes, and we have that here in the packet. And we read the consistency statement after we vote on the motion, don't we?
They can be every local government does it different. You can do it all in the same, or
What do you want us to do?
listen to the boss, the other boss.
Do your motion for the text amendment and then do a second motion for your consistency.
Okay, fine.
Consistency.
All right, any discussion on that initial motion? Can I offer?
Can I have a second? What are we motioning?
That
The
we're
text
just going to
amendment.
add 11.92F.
Okay.
As
I so move.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, we will have a second motion for, well, I'll read the consistency statement. And I'm only going to read action A, which is in the affirmative for the conformance with the planning board, with the land use plan. The planning board hereby recommends approval of the proposed amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance and finds that it is neither consistent nor inconsistent with the town's comprehensive 2017 Town of Sunset Beach Land Use Plan because it is silent sign regulations. Like to have a second to that affirmative?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The consistency statement is so approved. Valerie, thank you.
Yes. And
Thank
good
you
luck.
for your presentation.
Thank you.
And we'll make sure you get a copy of this. I'm going to hand it over to Katie now and everything's, and she can make you a copy.
I'm assuming I still work with Chad for the next
Yep.
step. And then when's the town council meeting? Because I'm assuming we also have to attend that, correct?
So you are not required to, but typically the procedure is that the council will schedule it for a hearing and then it will be heard at a certain date. Do we?
Oh, okay.
Do we have a date in mind for when that may be? Okay.
No, it wouldn't be June 1st. That's the planning board meeting.
June.
Isn't it June
June
5th?
5th to be heard on. Oh,
I don't know. We're going to move that one too. But it
Chad will certainly let you know, but it will be sometime in July, and that's just in town of Sunset Beach. That's just a procedure. Council schedules the hearing, and then it's heard at the next meeting.
But
Okay.
on June 5th, it'll be on the town council's agenda meeting for June 5th. And it will be this text amendment for wall signs. They will then discuss it. They have the ultimate authority to move it forward for a public hearing or to deny it
Okay.
at that meeting.
Okay.
I can't
So
comment.
that's the second. I remember saying that there was 3 hearings. So that's the second one. But we don't have to be. And so the third is the town.
The third would be the actual public hearing for that, because whenever we do a text amendment, the public has an opportunity before town council votes to approve something.
Okay.
to
So
get their
they'll
public input.
they'll decide on the June 5th.
I don't know when that
if
will
it's
be.
going
It
through or
depends
not.
on
Okay.
their calendar.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
All
you
right,
very
thank you.
much.
Good luck.
As we move forward under new business, just a question, Wes, and Lisa's here now, and for the edification of the planning board. We just approved a text amendment. I believe that we had the authority, opportunity to schedule our own public community input meeting. If we thought this was controversial enough that we wanted additional input from the citizens,
Sure,
before it goes to town council, we could in fact have a public hearing.
that's correct.
But before, the public hearing was mandatory. Now it is optional.
Correct.
Our option.
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
All right, we're going to move on to new business. Well, first of all, what I'd like to, and I know I'm kind of amending the agenda here, but since we have the benefit of having Wes here at this meeting, and we normally don't at our regular applicant meetings,
Thanks.
can you address what homework assignments you're going to be giving us,
Sure.
and where the next steps are in the UDO revision?
Sure. Yes. I have gotten your last article, Article 7 definitions, prepared in draft form, complete.
Wow.
But do note that I did, as I was doing the final printing, I noticed that there is some words that are out of alphabetical order. So please bear with me. That will be fixed. But it's 30 pages of definitions. Most of them, well, I won't say most, but probably half of them you have seen already along the way that we've had to add. And then, as you know, we pulled out the flood definitions and put them in the flood article, and wireless and put them in the wire. So, but yes, so when you guys get this today, you'll have effectively the entirety of a initial draft of the UDO. When we meet on the
18th.
18th.
Okay. That was my point. We needed to know if we were going to have a meeting on the 18th.
We will review the definitions, and my hope is that I will have. Again, we're ahead of schedule here by operating in this fashion. So it is possible I will have the revised draft of 1 or 2 of the articles for you on the 18th. I'm going to strive for that.
Good.
But again, originally that wasn't supposed to be till closer to June.
Now, we discussed some changes that were going to be in the Chapter 6 telecommunications.
Those
My understanding was that was going to come through in the final draft,
that
as a-
will,
Well, not the final draft.
but not the final, but
Our draft.
the final revised draft, if
Yes,
you
sir.
will.
So,
So-
next time you see Article 6, we discussed taking out some of the perhaps more burdensome approval procedures and clarifying the types of tower types, that those will all be
Okay.
addressed as well.
So we are
Right,
going to, in
and then
fact, have a
the-
meeting on the 18th
The
of
language that
May.
we suggested in terms of the minutes, that will be, that the coverage as a consideration set in the stipulations will be included.
Well, I mean, now we're talking about the UDO, but my understanding is that that was a provision that I need to go back and look, but I didn't know that there was agreement on including that specifically.
Well, then maybe that's something we'll discuss when we review the
Okay.
draft.
Okay.
Okay.
10-4, that works.
Good.
Okay. All right, we have one more item on our agenda for today, and it has to do with scheduling a special meeting or meetings later this month to dig in extreme detail with public comments, with town staff and the planning board to go over conditional zoning application and the role of documents that have been provided to us today for the conditional zoning topic.
Yes.
Chad has talked with you, I believe, as well as rest of town staff and our town attorney, that the May 25th, Thursday at 9 a.m. for the first meeting is available, and that a continuation onto the next day of May 26th at 9 a.m. If needed.
I wish they had reached out to the planning board members as well. I am not available on those dates. I'm the only person on this board that lives in Sea Trail. I'm the only person that has a 31-year history in terms of how Sea Trail has been managed and should be managed, and I feel very strongly that I need to be at this meeting and should have been informed. I might have been able to change my travel plans with enough notice, but now I am locked in and I will not be able to attend on those dates, and I'm going to have to suggest that we schedule that on a date where I can attend.
I hear you, and I would be disappointed as well. As far as your history goes, we all live here.
Yeah.
We all have a vested interest in this,
Absolutely.
and we have a planning board responsibility. We would still have a quorum without you, but
Can we check to see if those schedules could adhere to a date? I mean, we could even use the UDO dates. I will be here that week. We could do the UDO dates are the 18th and the 19th, and then schedule the UDO revisions for that time on the 23rd.
It's more than us. It is, and I'm not. The rest of the committee will have their say, but it's more than us. It's the applicant.
Yeah.
It's our town staff. I would venture to say you will never find a date that everybody that is involved can make the meeting.
Well, I guess my concern is there should have been an outreach to the individual board members. Had I had enough time to know this is on 3 weeks' notice, had I had enough time, I could have easily rescheduled and been available. But you know, we're talking about availability of staff, and certainly I respect that. The applicant, I mean, this would normally have been considered at our first meeting in June, and once again, you know, we're kind of bending the rules for this specific developer. I understand it's one of the
I
most.
take issue with that. There's no bending.
We're changing the date of the meeting specifically for this developer.
This is a special meeting,
Exactly.
not a regular meeting.
Correct. And we're creating that special meeting at the behest of the applicant. Okay? This is not something the planning board has thought was a good idea.
I'm going to disagree. It was a mutual discussion between town staff, our town attorney, the council of governments, and the applicant to come up with a date. Nobody on the planning board was given any advance notice.
And I think for a special meeting of this weight, the planning board should have been consulted.
All right, you're repeating yourself, so I'm going to ask
Well,
Rowan to speak.
I guess first of all, we've concluded, or staff concluded, that we need 2 days or 6 hours. Is that what we're planning on for this?
No, it's more. The 12 o'clock curfew does not apply here
Okay.
on the 25th. We could go until midnight.
Yeah, let me just.
I mean, obviously we won't, but
not going to midnight. But okay, so we got the 18th plan for UDO stuff or anything else, right? But because the 18th meeting is a regular meeting. The 18th and the 1st are regular meetings,
Mhm.
right?
Okay,
We
now
don't-
they are, now they
Right.
are. Yeah.
So anything else that's going on can be done on the 18th and, right. Right now, we just got the definition section to look at,
Mhm.
correct?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
just thinking what the agendas are going to be. So on the 18th, we have the agenda that's going to include probably some minutes to review and UDO definition section. And then if there's any other applications going on for other stuff, can be done on the 18th.
I think it can, yes, because it's a
So-
regular meeting.
Right.
I mean,
And then we need, so
Well, let him answer your question.
well, then I'm
So-
asking for the time. What time, how much hours do we think?
well, that is I mean, I can't answer that question, but sort of be up to you guys. I know the town attorney is not available on the 18th. We'd also have to make sure the applicant is available. That's correct. The 18th is. And so it may be that Lisa and I would need to discuss about potentially doing the first bit of this on the 18th and then having the second bit on the following week. I don't know.
You
but-
just said the town attorney is not available.
The
on-
town attorney's not available, so and I think that was yeah. So
Sybil, I think, wants to insert something
Yeah,
here.
these dates have been set up before us to meet other people's schedules. Now you're saying, can you come on the 23rd and 24th?
25th.
25th and 26th?
Can I come?
Uh-huh.
So far.
Can you come?
Yes.
Can you come? And I can come. So basically, you're asking us to change everybody else's schedule just for you.
No, everybody's schedule has been changed already. They've requested a special meeting. The first thing I'm going to recommend is if an applicant requests a special meeting, it should be in the ordinance that the planning board is informed before it can be approved. Okay? I mean, if this weren't for the fact that this is probably the most important meeting in terms of my membership on the planning board, I wouldn't make a fuss. But this is the most important meeting for me as a member of the planning board. It's that simple. I've been waiting for this meeting. I've been in discussion with the Riptide over this meeting. I go to the board's meetings in Sea Trails to participate in how this is going to be run. I'm someone that came in here and suggested conditional rezoning with Chad when their initial text amendment was a little goofy. So to be excluded from the ultimate resolve of all of these issues,
All right.
and particularly, and I'm going to
What
finish
about-
with this. I'm going to finish
Time
with it. I'm going to finish with one thing. If you live in Sea Trail, you're not allowed to vote for board members. Okay, the board is run by the declarant, which is Riptide. So there is no representation from Sea Trail to affect what Riptide does. And one of the reasons why I have been overwhelmed with thoughts on how this should be run is because I'm the only person that can represent
Please
in a
don't
way
bang on
that
the-
means
don't bang on the
something
dice.
the sentiment of the
Okay.
community of Sea Trail that lives in an environment where they're taxed, but they can't be represented.
They can come to these meetings.
But
All right,
And
hold
they-
it, hold it,
but
hold
they
it.
can't vote. They can't vote.
Silence. Respect the dais. Thank you. Anybody else have comments to make?
Is there any possibility to, let me make a proposal. Since we think 2 days or at least can be required, what about the 19th of May and the 2nd of June?
that
So it coincides with the same week of pre-planned meetings. Does that work for anybody? I'm just throwing that out as my consensus is I hear that we need 2 days.
There's people that are not present here, though, Ron. Your point is well taken, but if
Well, I'm
we
trying to
can't-
reach
An agreement.
a consensus acceptable compromise.
Our town administrator has approached the podium. Alan, is the microphone on? It is. Ms. Anglin?
I'll just clear up some of the confusion. The applicant did not request this special meeting. My directive to staff was that once this conditional zoning application was presented to staff and staff had reviewed it completely and deemed it appropriate to come to the planning board, then we would look at Grady's schedule and Wes's schedule and where they could meet would be the date set. The first available for both of them was March 25th and 26th. Do we believe that this is going to move in these 2 days to the town council? Probably not.
Not.
But we have to start the discussion. The meetings are YouTubed. You will be able to watch YouTube. And then when the next meeting happens, you would be present.
I can't vote. And that's the key distinction.
I
can't
just
vote.
said that we
I can't
doubt
vote
it's
on YouTube.
going.
I can't vote on YouTube. And the fact that Riptide didn't request this, staff has requested it, I think it's perfectly appropriate for the planning board, particularly if Riptide didn't request it, for the planning board to be informed by staff that, hey, we're thinking of scheduling this special meeting. Does planning board have an issue with it? Because that I would have raised my hand and said, yes, I have a big issue with it. If I had been informed in late April, I would have been able to change my travel schedule. I work my travel schedule assiduously so I can be at these meetings, okay? And I make some sacrifices in terms of my personal income to do that, all right? To suddenly have this thing plopped in front of me on dates that I've moved specifically so I could be at a meeting. When I talked with Chad, I said, hey, when do you think this conditional rezoning is going to come up? He says, oh, it's not going to come up in May, quote unquote. Okay, so now it's in May.
I'm
All right.
sorry that Chad misled you.
Well, I don't
But-
think he misled me. I think at the time,
The
that's
board
what he
is
thought it
comprised
was.
of 5 people. 4 makes a quorum.
Previous
And-
report, yeah.
3 minutes.
Grady
Well-
and Wes's schedule is what is necessary to meet.
Can Grady participate virtually?
No.
Why not? Is it his schedule?
Miss Anglin, can you see clear or see forward to taking this under advisement over the next 24 hours and getting back? Because otherwise, we will need to vote right now on the May 25th and May 26th.
And you need to vote right now because they blocked those 2 dates off.
Well, I vote no.
Well,
We have a motion
we haven't been a motion yet, so
Yeah.
we don't know what the motion is.
I guess my question was, we're trying to reach, are we sure there's no other compromise dates available?
The date Grady gave us.
Okay.
I mean,
well,
even if we split that and have one the 25th or the 26th and one on June 2nd or something.
I would expect this to be on the June 2nd in addition.
Well, June 1st is our regular meeting. I'm saying we can add an additional day of that Friday, like instead of maybe the 26th, have it on the 25th and June 2nd. Does that
It's at
possible
Grady's
work?
discretion. It's at
Possible
Grady's
work?
discretion. I'll have to check with his schedule.
okay. Is that a phone call we can make right now?
His schedule is what we work around.
We need to have our town council here. I mean, our
It is your
legal
council,
advisor
yeah.
here. During that
Absolutely.
meeting.
Yeah.
I would not want to proceed. It's too important an issue. I'd like to entertain a motion that we, I don't know how to, I don't even know how to word this motion.
Well, I think the first thing that we need to do is have a motion that rejects the schedule 24th and 25th,
25th and 26th.
25th and 26th, and then inform staff that they're going to have to see what they can do to schedule the
No, wait
meeting
a
on June 1st.
minute. If the motion doesn't pass, they don't have to do anything.
I'm beg your
They
pardon?
make the motion, and then if it passes, we'll discuss that.
Well,
Yeah,
it would-
yeah,
it would have to
exactly.
be
I
seconded.
think that's what I was
Don't
trying to
jump
say.
ahead.
It would have to be seconded. Or
All right, so
it would,
make your motion.
I make a motion that we reschedule, cancel the scheduled meetings on
25th and 26th.
20, and reschedule them. No, the motion is to cancel.
Is there a second?
Well, I'll second it just to have some discussion on it, I guess.
Okay.
And bring it to a vote, I guess. So I'll second it and ask for some discussion. I understand.
And Richard, you've made your point crystal clear. Please let the rest of the planning board insert their thoughts into this.
Okay.
So I've blocked out those dates and I can be here. Okay. But I do feel, maybe because of proximity, the passion in his position as a resident of that area and a member here, that I guess I'm trying to keep my mind open and try to find some way to where he can participate. And not screw up the whole town and every other consultant and lawyer that we're using on this. So I'd say I'm second it only because I'd like to
Discuss it.
have this few more minutes of discussion on it. Is
But this.
I
one-
mean, I can be here if that's the case, but I'm just to have then a planning board member sort of feel squeezed out. That's my word, not anybody else's. I just feel is somewhat troublesome.
You finished?
Yes.
My position is that if I found myself in similar shoes as Mr. Dysinger, that I would either change my plans, because obviously I would feel that this is extremely important, or I would make sure that I could watch it on YouTube, either live on YouTube or after the fact. Because what I want to hear from this special meeting is detailed information from the applicant and then detailed discussions from town staff on each individual site that we're talking about out of the 22 that are there. I can get all of that information over YouTube. I would venture to say that it is highly unlikely, in my view, that there's going to be any voting going on at least the 25th. And that I can catch up if I can't change my plans. And I think there's too many other, you're never going to find a date, whatever date we're going to do, I can guarantee you that somebody from the applicant or somebody from this planning board or people from our town council that also want to be present are not going to be able to make it. So you can't have everybody there. So,
Am I
Sybil?
correct? This is probably only the first of a number of meetings. And it is one meeting. And there are going to be more.
2 meetings.
And I agree with you that I doubt there'll be any voting.
we will not finish this in 2 meetings.
No.
In my heart, I say. There's too much detail and too many sites. And we can only, after 3 or 4 hours, I'm jello up here. So,
Sometimes, as in the past, as Ron has done this, is send in his comments regarding whatever plan. So is that an appropriate method for Richard to use?
well,
So
Ron did
through-
it to me on a meeting he
Yes.
missed. He
Which
looked
you
at the
read-
agenda and I read
read-
his comments verbatim.
So if that's a starting point for Richard, I would strongly suggest that we do it that way.
And he's got the plans to
Yes.
look at. And I think that's a very valid point and very respectful of Richard. However, I think a lot of the questions are going to come up at the meeting, as opposed to questions that I'm going to develop as I read the drawings. Because I want more facts about each site that I would venture to say are not in the drawings. That's what conditional zoning is all about.
Is this
It's
a
site
public- Is this
specific.
a public meeting as well?
It's a public meeting, yes.
So as well as the residents
Yep.
with Richard will be in this room as well.
I will venture to say, Richard, for your edification, that the start of this meeting is going to be people lining up at the podium to say how great the applicant's proposal is and how great it is for Sea Trail, and another equally long line that
And
says
this is why I
that
feel-
it's bad in
I'm sorry, go ahead.
stormwater, it's bad in electricity, it's bad for our infrastructure. They're going to come up with a litany of reasons why not and why yes.
Right.
So that we're going to be going through that process initially.
I am somewhat comforted by the thought that there aren't going to be any votes. 'Cause-
Well, I can't say that.
Okay, well, you've kind of said it. But the reason I am so passionate about the voting issue is the fact that I am the only person in Sea Trail, other than Mike Hargraves, that gets to vote on what Riptide does.
That's not.
And it
that's not
is-
fair.
No,
That's
it
not-
is.
No,
It's
it's not.
totally fair.
What happens on this conditional zoning affects everybody in this
No,
town.
no, I'm the only person within Sea Trail.
Oh, that's snob. You're a snob.
No, I'm not.
Oh, it
Time out.
definitely Trail's not.
You know,
Mr. Chair.
this is an issue that when
Time
Katie's asked for.
yeah, go ahead.
You do have a motion on the floor right now to cancel the May 25th and 26th
can
And we're
meeting.
deliberating it now.
Now we're deliberating it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Take a vote.
Thank you
I'll-
for that reminder.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will
All right.
close.
I'm finished speaking, and I think
I'm done.
you two have already spoken. I'd like to call the motion to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All
Take a roll.
opposed?
Take a roll.
Richard Dysinger, aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay for me.
Nay.
Motion does not pass. All right. So what we're faced with here, Ms. Anglin, you made some comment about possibly getting up with Grady. As I said, I don't know that. I think you're going to find a date that somebody else can't make it. It's betwixt and between. I'd like to stay with the 25th as the first meeting date and continuing on to the 26th.
I would like to make a motion that in the future, any special meeting that is convened the planning board has to be informed. We need to be on the call list.
Okay, I'm not prepared to have that permanently.
I am making the motion.
Okay. Do we have a second to that motion? Seeing as it's not been seconded, I think that creates a cumbersome situation for the future.
Is there anything in
The
is there current?
Let him. He's trying to speak for you. He's
Is there
trying to speak
anything,
in your
Wes, in our
behalf.
code about that? I mean, in the UDO or the new UDO about planning notifications?
I would have to double check.
Special meeting has 7 days notification. Doesn't it?
May I just interject briefly here, and we do have the applicant in the room. May I ask one quick question of the applicant? Sure. Just one word, one sentence. It sounds like you have
Identify yourself,
please, Todd.
and it will just be me speaking with you. Understand that we're discussing scheduling here. If for some reason, very unlikely at this time being, that this were to move to the first week of June, at the first meeting, one, are you available?
Due to the significance of this meeting, I would, well, first of all, Todd Rademacher,
You have
279 Clubhouse.
You
Road.
other folks as well.
Yeah, we'd have to schedule our attorney and get on his
Okay.
schedule, and he's coming from Asheville.
So, in other words, you would have to check, but preferably keeping it
Yes.
as is.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. Because we
thank
just
you.
found out about this on Friday ourselves.
All right. Just wanted to know that. Just bringing it to your attention, and but also similar to what you've heard here, be considering
Yes,
that
sir.
the first Thursday meeting probably also,
Understood.
consider
Understood.
being available. Thank you. That's
Yes.
all.
All right. Hearing that, I'd like to entertain a motion that we, for staff recommendations, that the planning board requested to schedule a special meeting for Thursday, May 25th, and Friday, May 26th at 9 a.m. each day to consider conditional zoning applications submitted by Riptide Builders LLC. Can I have a second?
Second.
Well, we beat this horse. It's already dead with discussion, but all in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Any opposed?
Nay.
And you got that, Katie? Okay.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, may I just may I just say a comment about your sort of the framework for you guys in terms of reviewing this between now and the 25th. Is that okay if I
Please.
Okay.
We'd like the coaching.
Sure. So remember that this, and I think you guys understand conceptually what conditional zoning is, right? This is just to establish essentially the permission to do certain things on each site. Now, there will come, say, if this is approved, then there's a second phase that comes in when more detailed site plans come in, similar to what you're used to seeing for major site plans or subdivisions that have all of the engineering, etc. This is a more of a basic structure of these are the things that the applicant's proposing on the site in terms of uses, setbacks. Certainly, if there's things that you may notice, well, the context of this site may mean that a buffer would be a good idea, or there's some uses that we're not comfortable, that type of thing. But the detailed engineering, we're not there as part of this. Does that make sense? But it is a lot. It's a lot to unpack, and we're gonna be here to support you guys, answer questions, all that we need to, as we move forward. So does that help?
It does. And as a question for you, bootstrapping on that, let's say we approve what is submitted, and it's a list of half a dozen different types of businesses that can be placed, and the setbacks are shown, but no buffers are shown yet.
Right.
The quality and the scope of a buffer is really dependent upon the type of business that may or may not be placed within that footprint.
Sure.
And for the rest of the board, once we approve those half a dozen applications within that one site, that lasts forever, even if the applicant sells that property to somebody else, because that right transfers with the property.
Yep.
So 20 years from now, something could happen, or 6 months from now, something could happen.
That's right, unless it's rezoned back to its original district. But do remember, there'll still be, unless there's a specific request to be exempt from the standard buffering rules in place, they still have to buffer. It would be only where you guys said, well, they'll be required to have a 20-foot buffer, but it's, for example, right next to single family. So maybe we think it's more appropriate to be a 25-foot buffer. I'm just giving you an example.
Yes. We're not locked into the ordinances that exist because it's conditional zoning. We can change them for that site-specific condition.
If you feel it
If
is
we want to.
necessary or warranted, and remember the
They have to
condition.
agree.
That's correct.
Question?
Yes, sir.
And this is the main question in my mind on this process, and I have not looked at any of this. I view this as sort of a contract of exceptions and allowances that we're creating. So, to your last statement, whatever approved is the only exceptions and allowances approved. Anything else reverts back to the UDO at time of conditional zoning or at time of permitting.
The UDO at the time of their approval, so they would be falling under the
Present UDO.
The present UDO. That's correct.
So in other words, say, and this is where I'm going to, say we approve a use on a property.
Yep.
The current supplemental regulations still apply.
Yes.
Unless we say they don't.
Right, or unless they're requesting for them not to.
Right.
Yep. That's correct.
So my key thing, in my mind, key thing is all the other rules apply unless specifically spelled out in the CDO as being, and the CZ as being changed. But it's the UDO in effect at the time of the zoning approval.
That's correct. They would be unless for some reason we adopted the draft UDO. Actually, no, they've already had the application in. So they are subject to your existing UDO, not any of the stuff
So
that
they
we've
can't
worked
put
on.
a 200-foot sign up with a 250-foot setback because that has not yet been approved by town council.
Now they will be allowed to use that rule.
Okay, to their
It-
advantage. But but they have to bring that up right now.
No. So in the future, because that is an existing. So if there is a less restrictive rule, for example, they're allowed to use a change in the ordinance, unless, for example, unless say the CZ said that no signage above X square footage or whatever it would be.
You confused me, but I
was with you for a while too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess to me it's because there's no way that document is covering everything in this book. So again, if we change a use and we say that this parcel is now allowed to have a library on it. And that's the only change we make. That's the only CZ change.
Yep.
Everything else is on the book, is in this book at the time that we approve that CZ.
That's correct, unless the development standard changes, and there is a more. The statute basically says if there's a rule change after the time of application submittal or adoption, that an applicant is allowed to. So you guys would have to change this in the future, like a development standard for parking. Let's just say right now that you approve something and there's supposed to be 20 parking spaces required. 2 years down the road, you guys make a change that says for retail you're only required to have 10 parking spaces. On that site that just says parking as required per the UDO, then in the future they would be allowed to do 10 parking spaces. Does that make sense? Unless
Yeah,
it
but-
was,
But we also know we're replacing the whole book.
that's right.
So are they going to be able to get to pick and choose?
That's
In other
kinda-
words, they could,
that-
once we approve the CZ, they can say, I'm going to look at this book and then I'm going to look at the new book and see which terms we like better.
yes, but
Or can we put,
if
or
the-
can we write that out?
the
in
setback
CZ?
the setbacks are set in stone, the things that are on there. But remember, you guys are approving a UDO contained with rules and regulations that you support, right? So there should be no issue with a future applicant using one or the other.
But in some cases, we're strengthening, let's say private roads. Okay?
Well, can
So
we?
The
then
new UDO is, in my mind, strengthening because no private roads. The existing one allows it.
Yep.
But and the reverse can be true, parking or something. I'm a
So-
little uncomfortable with
so
the
the
picking
app-
and choosing.
So the that's the state statute. That's not
We can't write that out.
That's not Wes's statute.
We can't put that in there. That the text of this in the time of approval is the text you follow.
So if you're the property owner, I have rights today under the existing rules, correct?
Yes.
So I am vested under those existing rules. If the property that I own in a jurisdiction changes those rules in the future, and I can benefit from them, I'm allowed to benefit from them if I want. However, if they are more restrictive or they create greater protections on my site, I can refer back to that original vested rule that I was under. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
So, I mean, sorry to bother everybody.
No,
The
that's
one item
fine.
that pops in my mind, restaurants. There's a use for restaurants in this book. There's going to be a use for restaurants in
Mhm.
the new book. And I
Yep.
believe we talked about, and I didn't get a chance to pull it out.
Sure.
We're adding supplemental regulations in the new book.
Sure.
Okay. So there's obviously, I bet you in this pile, there's a restaurant someplace.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. So right now, they could say, I like the old book. There's no supplementals.
Mhm.
And we've decided to already. So can I in this say, when you add a use of restaurant, I want this supplemental included?
As a condition, as part of this approval, this board can say, you know what, we've talked about restaurants, and one of the things that we would like to add are these use regulations, and that would be part of the CZ approval. But remember, they have to be agreed on by the applicant.
I'm going to insert
Okay.
something here. We're changing the UDO to benefit the town, and we're inserting things as we go through our process here that I think are all very positive things. I was always under the impression that the rules of engagement were the book that you would use would be based upon the time you are making that submittal for your site plan, and that you have to follow the current UDO at that time.
Which is what he said that you do.
Well, but he's
Well-
saying you could go, because this is conditional zoning, you could go back to a less restrictive that is in the binder we're using today, as opposed to the new one that we're going to come out with, or the umpteen other changes that we make over the next 5 years.
But that's similar to subdivision approval. Remember, you get a
Yes.
subdivision approval, and it's vested for a certain period of years. So
This is vested forever, though.
Well, what this,
Conditional zoning.
if I can interject
it's
here, what
vested
this,
for
Let him finish, please.
it's
Yeah.
vested for 7 years. If common law vesting would not be achieved, meaning that there wouldn't be infrastructure, et cetera, substantial expenditures that occur within that period of 7 years, the town would have the right to rezone it back to the original
Okay.
district.
Richard?
So what it seems to me is that in this kind of period between the old UDO and the UDO, any conditional rezoning application should have within it subsidiary relations that are forward to the new UDO. Now, those have to be agreed upon by the applicant, but now they're embedded as a subsidiary regulation in the conditional rezoning,
Mhm.
and whether it's in the new UDO or the old UDO, he can't pick anymore. In other words,
I'm going to ask, you bring up an excellent point, and so do you, Ron. I'm going to ask town staff to advise us as we move through this conditional zoning approval from this application as to what is a manageable caveat to add to our conditional zoning that we would have to initiate and that the applicant would have to agree to. Because this is complex.
Yeah, the reason I bring this up is I want everybody understand what we're about to do. Okay?
Exactly.
We're giving a parcel, a new set of rules to govern them forever, essentially, unless some strange circumstance.
Unless the applicant fails
this
to
is
do
not-
anything for 7 years.
Right. This is not simple.
Yeah.
And we have to be very careful in my mind. And what I'm trying to get my mind wrapped around is what are we about to approve or not approve? And I think it's more complicated than most people
yeah,
view.
because my impression from the preliminary conditional rezoning application that and we're learning this, and so is Riptide, is that it was fairly broad strokes. I mean, I get the intent, but conditional rezoning, the conditions have to be two-way.
Well, let's look at their package and
Yeah.
see what it is. We don't know what it is.
We don't know yet, and obviously there's a lot more
All right,
detail on this.
I'd like to move forward. We're rehashing the same. Excuse me for cutting anybody off if your feelings are hurt. We have scheduled a meeting. We voted on it. It was 4-1. We are having the meeting on the 25th. Do we have any public comments limited to 3 items, 3 minutes per speaker? Seeing that we have nobody jumping up, I'd like to entertain a motion that we adjourn, and our next meeting is going to be on the 18th of May at 9 a.m. to continue our UDO update process. Can we have a second to that motion?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wes is sending down the packets for